maybe with your pet projects. Okay, so some time ago, I worked on my personal project that contained the front-end part and the backend. And when I finished, I decided to share the application with other people, so I needed to publish it somewhere in the internet. And for the front-end part, like we have a simple solution because it was written in the Angular, and we may host the static JavaScript files, for example, in the GitHub pages. But for the backend, I needed some server to run my logic in .NET Core. And my idea was to try this application with several users, and then maybe start something like public beta and attract more users. So my application should keep a lot in the future. And I started to search what to use for a server, what can run actually my application. And we have several options here. So first option, it's a shared hosting. With this approach, the website and its resources, including CPU, memory, and storage, are shared with all other hosted sites. And you actually don't know which websites will be sharing the hosting platform with you. So you can't prognose how much resources you will have. And also it's hard to scale, but at the same time, it's very cheap. The second option is a virtual private server, or VPS. With this server, you have more control on the resources, and this solution can be scaled vertically and horizontally by increasing CPU and memory. Sorry. But you have to install and manage all the needed software. For example, you need some runtime for your application, you need a web server, you need some database, and so on. And the last option, it's a cloud. So for example, Amazon Cloud or Microsoft Azure. And this solution can be scaled vertically and horizontally, and you will have provisioned resources and can handle theoretically any load, but you need to pay for it and from the beginning. And even cloud providers have the free tier, some free plans. It's limited in time. And the main drawback, as I see, of the cloud solution, it's that you need to support complicated infrastructure. And it's not the best solution if you just want to deploy some application on the internet. And I think Heroku eliminates drawbacks of all these solutions. And today I will try to show you how. So let me introduce myself. My name is Alexander Martinyuk. I'm from Ukraine and I worked for 1 year. I'm a .NET developer with some experience in web API and databases. And now I'm interested in system design and architecture. My current assignment at Scania, and we are building the web application that called Scania Workshop Suite. And this application helps mechanics in workshops diagnose and maintain trucks. And today our agenda is, first of all, we will look into the Heroku principles. What does differ Heroku from other cloud platforms? And then we'll see some basics, some theory. After that, I will demonstrate how to deploy the simple .NET Core application to the Heroku. After that, we can compare the Heroku with AWS because I'm mostly familiar with AWS, but it can be like the same for other cloud platforms like Azure or Google Cloud. And we will understand when to use Heroku, in what cases. And yeah, so let's start. The principles of Heroku. And the main principle of Heroku that stated on their site, it's a cloud for developers. And it means that you basically can use familiar tools, familiar for software developer tools while working with Heroku. And For example, we can see how to deploy the simple Python application to the Heroku. So first of all, we need to command line tool, and we need to install the Heroku CLI. And most of developers are like command line interfaces and prefer them over the web UI, for example, or some configuration files. So after that, we need to log in. And for this, we need to have an account in Heroku. And after that, we need to have some applications that we want to deploy. And in this example, Heroku provides some simple getting started written in the Python and Django. So after we cloned the code, the source code, we need to create the application in Heroku. And with this command, Heroku will provide us with two outputs. First, it's our URL of our site on the internet. And the second, it's a URL of our Git repository. So later we will use this Git repository, for example, to deploy our application. And this deployment can be done with a simple Git push. So we need to push into the remote, and the code will be built and deployed automatically by the Heroku. And after that, if we want, for example, to see some logs, we just need to write to the standard debug output, and Heroku will collect all these logs and provide you with this command that calls Heroku logs. So Heroku lets application developers spend the whole time on the application code, not on the managing servers, deployments, different ongoing operations, or scaling. And that's why I like Heroku. So let's look into the basics of Heroku. So out of the box, Heroku supports such programming languages. And if you write code with one of these languages, you are lucky, because Heroku knows how to build and manage dependencies for such applications. And all what you need to do is only provide the proc file. And proc file, it's a text file in the root directory of your repository that explicitly declare what command should be executed to start your application. So in this example, we want to deploy the web application, and some Python program will be run. All Heroku applications run in the lightweight Linux containers that called Dino. And this Dino is like a separate virtual computer that running your program on Heroku servers. And Dino can be scaled horizontally and vertically. And for scaling horizontally, you need to add more web dynos that can allow you to handle more concurrent HTTP requests. And to scale vertically, you may use a bigger dynos, like change the type of the dyno. And the maximum amount of memory that available to your application depends on the dyno type you use. These three hobby and standard dyno types, they are completely isolated. They may share the underlying computer instance. But the two most performant types of dyno, performance M and I, they are like totally dedicated. So they use separated computer instance. And each dyno gets its own ephemeral file system. And it means that you cannot use this file system as a persistent storage for your applications. During the dyno's lifetime, the processes can use the file system only as a temporary scratchpad, but no files that are written are visible to other processes in any other dyno. And all these files on the ephemeral file system, then they will be discarded at the moment when dyno is stopped or restarted. And for example, this occurs any time a dyno is replaced during the, for example, application deployment, and also approximately once per day as a normal dyno management. So you should not rely on these files, and you can use them only as a temporary scratchpad, not as a persistent storage. And dyno can be two types. First, it's a web, and web dyno can wait for incoming HTTP requests. So if you build some web application or web API application, you need to use the web type. And the worker, it's a dyno that can perform some operations in the background, like schedule tasks, background services. And Heroku runtime provides a strong isolation of all dyno from each other. The only traffic that can reach a dyno is a web request forwarded from the router to the web process listening on the specific port. And this port is specified in the port environment variable. And the worker can't receive inbound HTTP requests. So it's the main difference between these two types. Inbound requests are received by router, and this router offers SSL termination. That's why your application will be secure for the internet, but internally in the Heroku cloud, they will communicate through the unsecure HTTP protocol. And the router also responsible for determining the location of your application's web dynos and forwarding the HTTP request to one of these dyno. So the router also works as a load balancer. And Heroku router supports HTTP 1.1 and such features as chunked responses, long polling, WebSockets, and of course the router supports fully compatible with the previous version, like 1.0. Okay, so then dyno can execute your code, but usually it's not enough to build an application. And you may want to have some database or queue for async messaging and so on. And Heroku add-ons can help you with this. So Heroku add-ons, it's a components and tools that support your application. Add-ons can be used for data storage, for monitoring, for analytics, for data processing, and so on. And Heroku provides more than 175 add-ons. And they are fully maintained or by Heroku itself or by third-party companies. And usually this add-ons is very simple to install. It's like one click in the web console or just one command in the shell. And on the screen you can see some most popular add-ons that provided by Heroku or third-party companies. And this, for example, the Postgres database, Redis, Apache Kafka, MongoDB, Elasticsearch, and so on. And also, one of the most important features for me, it's a free plan. For free, Heroku provides one dyno with the following characteristics. Like this dyno can be run 24 hours per day, and it has 500 megabytes of memory, but this dyno will sleep after 30 minutes of inactivity. So if the last 30 minutes your web dyno has not received any request, it will be paused. And it will wake up on the next request. And for your user, it may look as if the site in the browser open the first for a longer time. And yeah, this is also one of the limitations of FreeDyno. You limit it in the bandwidth. It's only 2 terabytes per month. And the good thing about free plan that most of add-ons also support free plan. So you can like use some database on some or another service, but with some limitation. For example, Postgres database provides only 10,000 rows in the database for free, and then you need to pay if you want more. Yeah, and that's why I like Heroku very much. And okay, now I will try to demonstrate you how to deploy the .NET Core Web application to Heroku. And as you remember, .NET it's not is not supported by the Heroku out of the box. So, but it's still possible to deploy the .NET Web application, and I will try to show you how to do this. So for this, I will switch to my I will run Visual Studio Code. Yeah, but first thing that we need to do, we need to create the account in the Heroku. So this is the login page, and we actually need sign up. Yeah, and we need to provide some basic information about the user. For example, my company, my role, the country, the language. I use another language because as you see, the C# and .NET is not in the list of supported. And I'm not a robot. Yeah, and then I will use the suffix for my email because I have the account registered with my primary email on the Gmail. Okay, then we press Okay, we can use
plus is probably a valid character.
No, I think plus is valid, but I used this for this because, and now my account is suspended. So I will use just one in the end, and I think it should be fine. No. Okay, let's try another. Okay, so I use just another email. And now we need to wait some time to confirm my account. Yeah, and here is a link. So we press the confirmation link. And then we need to create the password. Yeah, and that's basically all. So now my new account is created. And we made to login. Yes, and here we need to press accept. Yeah, and this is my new account. Yeah, Alexander, Alt and Demo and Tukernet. Yeah, all's fine. So now we can basically switch to our application and to the editor. So here I'm going to create the simple web application with the .NET Core. And for this, we will use the shell, the terminal. For example, we need to use the main command .NET and then new, then web app. we need to give some time .NET to create the files for the application from some template and then restore the packages, and now all's fine. So we may build just to demonstrate how our application will look like later. And run. Yeah, now our application is up and running, so we can open, for example, here. Yeah. So this application contains some welcome page, some home page, and also the privacy page. So it's very simple. Okay. And now we are going to create, I will stop the application. We are going to create the Heroku application. So we have some code, and now we need to say Heroku that we want to deploy our code to the server. So for this, I will use the Heroku CLI. So I type Heroku and then create, and our application will be called alt and demo. Yeah, I forgot to log in. So first of all, we need to log into the Heroku. And now Heroku is open the web browser, so I press confirm, and as you see, now I am logged in as Alexander Altendemo at Ukernet. Yeah, and now I can actually Heroku already created the application, and here we see the URL on the internet and the URL of my repository. So after that, we need to add all our code to the Heroku repository. And for this, I need to type git init. So we are going to create a new repository in this folder. And then I need to add the remote, like for the Heroku repository. And for this, we use git remote add Heroku. And then we need to provide this URL. Yes, and now we need to add some files to our newly created repository. I prefer to remove these binaries that was created during build, and also a BG file. So we will add only the source code. Okay, and now we can commit this message. Yes, now all our files are committed, and we can push. We specify our remote, and also we need to specify the branch. So we use the master branch, and we type master. So now Git will send all the files needed to the repository, to the remote repository. And after that, Heroku will start actually the building the application. And these errors, it's from Heroku. And it says that no default language could be detected for this app. And this because .NET and C# are not supported by the Heroku. So we need to fix this somehow. And for this, Heroku provides the possibility to run your application in the container. So we now we are going to change our type of our application to the container and also provide the Docker container. And this Docker container will contain all the logic for building my application. And first of all, I will clear the screen. We need to set the stack of our application. We use the command Heroku stack that set, and parameter container will tell that we want to use a container instead of the language runtime. Yeah, it's done. And now we need to create the Docker file. So we will create it in the root. It should be named Docker file. And now I will copy the code that will build my application. So here we have like two parts. One part is for the build the application, and second part will run my application. So we use two different images, Microsoft.NET Core SDK and then Microsoft.NET Core ASP.NET Runtime. And the last command is actually what will be run when we when Heroku will run my application. And yeah, all's fine. So after that, we also need to tell Heroku that we want to use this specific Docker file. And for this, we need to create the file that called Heroku YAML. It's like an alternative to the proc file for the languages that are supported by the Heroku. And this Heroku YAML should contain actually the path to my Docker file and also the type of my dyno. So I want to run a web application with this Docker file. And the Docker file is just a path, relative path. And because my Docker file in the same folder, we can like skip the directory. So we specify only the file name. So now we added these two files. We need to save them and add them to the repository, commit and push. Git commit. I forgot about the name, the message. How can I break this? Okay. Okay, and now we are going to push. And this time Heroku should be able to build our application because now it's Docker file and Heroku knows how to deal with the Docker files. Yeah, and see with this remote prefix, you see the output from the Heroku. So Heroku started to build the Docker file. And first step, it's a pooling of the initial image. Yeah, and now the step 2, step 3. Usually it takes some time, like 20, 30 seconds. And after our application will be built, we can open the URL in the browser and check how it looks like. Yeah, and for this, Heroku CLI also provides some commands, so we can use Heroku apps open. So we should not remember the URL of our application. Yeah, and it opens the browser, and here we see the application error. So something bad happened during the application running. So it was deployed, but then something happened. And to check what actually happened, we can try to use the logs. Logs. Okay, so starting process, storing keys, all's fine. And then we have some error, unable to start Kestrel because of socket exception, permission denied. And Kestrel is a web server that built in the .NET Core applications. And basically what we see here, it's a problem with the port. So Heroku allows to run your applications only with a specific port, and you can't bind the port that you want. You can read the port that will be used with your application from the environment variable that called port. And to fix this, we need to go to the startup CS file and then add this configuration. So basically, we need to run our web server, built-in web server that called Kestrel, with the port specified in the environment variable port. And I have a code snippet for this. So it's a program, CS. And we need to add this configuration. So we use the startup class, and then we use the Kestrel, and we tell the Kestrel that you should use the configuration and you should use the port variable, port value from the port, and then you should start listening on this port. And in case if this environment variable is empty, for example, like in my on my local laptop, it will just skip this configuration. So now we need to commit these changes and to push to the Heroku. So we changed this file and then git. So now Heroku will do the same. So build our Docker image and then deploy the application, this container to the storage. And also I should mention that I use the Git like from command line, but you can use any Git tool that you prefer. For example, I also can use the source control tab in the Visual Studio Code, and you can like push and commit do all the things via the UI. And yeah, now our application was built and deployed, and we can again open our web application. So this is, yeah. And now you see that all's fine, and our application was successfully deployed, and it's running on the Heroku servers. Okay. And now let's see how we can scale our application. So for example, we have many users, and we decided to, for example, run the 2 dynos instead of 1, or maybe change the dyno type to use more performant dyno. And for this, I need to change one thing, because Heroku doesn't allow to scale the application without the credit card information. So you need to provide the payment information to be able to scale your application, because by default with the free dyno you can only use the one instance. For example, if I try to scale my application, I want to run 2 instances. Heroku will say that I can do this because I'm limited with the one free dyno, because I'm use a free plan. So I need to add my credit card information. I will do this in one moment. Mm-hmm. Okay, where is my CVC code? Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I saved the credit card details, so we can try to scale the application one more time. Mm-hmm. So free size dyno per process type. So we need to scale it, like change the dyno type, not only the number of running dynos. And for this, we can use the same command, ps scale, but also provide the type of the dyno. And for example, I can use standard 1x. Ooh, not standard, standard. Yeah, so now we have 2 running dynos instead of 1, and I also changed the type of this dyno to more performant. And now theoretically our website can handle more traffic. And also the good thing about Heroku is that you can monitor the execution of your application on the Heroku site. So for example, let's open the web console of the Heroku, and here we see the out and demo, our application just deployed. And Heroku provides some dashboard, and here you see some metrics, so we can open the metrics tab to see them in details. And we see that we have 2 web dynos, and here we can monitor the memory usage, some events that related to, for example, to deployment. and also the response time for our service, and the throughput and the dyno load and so on. So I will return my my dyno to 1 free because I don't want to be charged for some performant dyno types. And as you remember, this 1 free dyno is absolutely free, so you can use it all day without like any limitation in time. Only the memory is limited, the 500 megabytes of memory. Okay, and maybe it's useful also to see how to manage the releases. But for this, we need to create another version of our application. So let's, for example, change the header on the main page. We have the index CS.html, and I will change the welcome text to the welcome Alten. And now we need to commit. Change it header and push. Heroku master. So now we will deploy the second version of our application. So now it looks like this. We have only the welcome. No, it's a local host. It's another. Yeah, that's one running in the internet. So now we have only the welcome text on the main page, but after the deployment, we will have the welcome Alten. So let's wait while Heroku builds this Docker image and push to the registry. Yeah, now our application is deployed, and we can refresh the page. So we see the welcome Alten, and now we will look into the releases that was created by Heroku. So for this, we have the command that called Heroku releases. And here we see that we have already 6 releases. So last was deployed just 30 seconds ago. And yeah, and previous release was version 5. So let's try to roll back to the version 5. And for this, we use the command that called roll back. And we need to provide the version number. So it will be version 5. Oh, sorry, I misspelled. It should be roll back with 2L. But as you see, Heroku can help you. So it can try to propose another command that very similar that to ones that you misspelled. Okay, and now if we open if we get the releases list, we will see that the new version was created, the version 7. And this is the rollback to version 5. So now if we want to roll, for example, version 6, we can easily do this. So this previous 6 version was not erased. And I think it's very good. So now if we refresh the page, we will see that it's a previous version, so with only welcome. And if we want to back to the version 6, we can easily do this. And this rollback happens like immediately. So I think it's also very good, like how Heroku can manage this. Okay, and maybe the last thing that I want to show you about the Heroku, it's how to use some add-on. And for add-ons, we have specific command, as usual, in the Heroku. And need to type add-ons and then create. But how to understand what you should create, like what type of add-ons? For this, I prefer to go to the website, to the Heroku console, and look at the available add-ons list. So on the resources tab, we have these add-ons, and there are no add-ons for this app. So we don't have any like linked add-on. And we press this button, find more. And here we should see the all list the available add-ons, and they are grouped by the categories. For example, data storage. So we can use, for example, Redis or Kafka or MariaDB or other. And then the monitoring and the logging, email, SMS, caching, and so on, so on. So there are a lot of add-ons that you can use. And for example, I will show you how to attach some logs. So we will use this log DNA. And we open the description of these add-ons, and there we can see some explanation what it is, how it works. And we see that it's supported in 2 regions, like in United States and Europe. And also we can check this pricing. So it has also a free plan. And this free plan has unlimited storage, as I understand this, and doesn't have archiving and automatic field parsing. I don't know what is it, but maybe we don't need this. So I will use this log DNA. And for this, I need to copy and paste this command. So we need to copy it, paste into our shell. Yeah, and now the new instance of the log DNA was created for us. And we can, for example, see some documentation about these add-ons. We type Heroku add-ons docs and then the name of the add-on. And the name is log DNA. And now Heroku CLI will open the browser on my second screen. I will move it here. And you can check all the information about this add-on. So how you can use this log DNA, what the plan it supports, and so on. And also we can open this add-on. So instead of read documentation, we can type open, and we will see actually the interface of the login system. So how it looks like. Yeah, and here we need to close this. Yeah, I'm already familiar. And now we see the logs from our application. So it's Alton demo application. And you can see some additional information like this process was started, and we can press several times the refresh button in browser just to check that all our requests also are logged. Okay. Yeah, and now you see some incoming traffic. So for example, it's a GET request to this file, Bootstrap, and so on. And here you can use some additional features, for example, alerts. So you can configure your login system that you will see some errors, for example, in your application immediately on the, for example, to your email or to the Slack, or transfer them to the Datadog, to the another login system, and so on. So I think it's very cool that these add-ons are provided for free with such functionality. Okay, and this is basically all that I want to show you about the Heroku in action and deployment the .NET Core application. So let's back to the demonstration. And now when we know something about Heroku, we can compare it with the AWS. And the main difference between Heroku and Amazon Web Services that the Heroku it's a platform as a service and AWS is infrastructure as a service. So with the platform as a service, you just push your code and it will be automatically deployed, tested, and so on. But with infrastructure as a service, you need to create a role, you need to build a specific like bundle that will be run on the server and then deploy it and then create the domain name and the balancer and open the ports and firewalls and all this stuff. So it's not a trivial task. And usually you need to use some specific language when you want to create this infrastructure in the AWS. So language like CloudFormation or Terraform. So Heroku is a simple and AWS gives you more control over your application. And that's why Heroku is cheap for hobby, but AWS is expensive for hobby. So if you even want to build some simple application, you need to do all this stuff with a load balancer, with other services that cost some money. But Heroku provides a free plan, and I think it's very good. But Heroku built on top of the AWS. So Heroku doesn't have own servers, and it runs the dynos in the EC2 instances cluster, so on the infrastructure or of AWS. So on the big scale, Heroku can be theoretically cheaper than AWS. So that's why Heroku is expensive on a scale, but AWS still will be like relatively cheap on the scale. So Heroku is very good for hobby and startups, but AWS is better for enterprises. And Heroku is good when you don't have some dedicated team of DevOps or cloud engineers, and you want just to build your code and push to the internet. But if you use the AWS, you with a bigger probability some enterprise, and you have the team that can manage all this infrastructure for you. And AWS also provide some tool that like platform as a service. So they want to give the exact experience as you have with the Heroku. So simple deployment and simple scaling. And this tool in the AWS called Elastic Beanstalk. And more like right to compare the Heroku with the Elastic Beanstalk. So only with the part of the AWS, because AWS is big, and the real like comparison makes sense only with the Elastic Beanstalk. And yeah, as I said, it's a platform as a service from Amazon. It supports 7 languages and also Docker. So you can run basically any runtime that needed for your application with a Docker. And one great thing of the Elastic Beanstalk that doesn't support by Heroku, it's environments. So for example, if you have the application and you want to have the production version and the staging, or maybe some QA environment, and Elastic Beanstalk allow you to deploy the same version of the code into different environments one by one. But to deploy something to Elastic Beanstalk, you need to build the specific app bundle. So like pack your builded code into some zip with a specific structure and then deploy somehow to the Elastic Beanstalk, maybe with the AWS CLI maybe with the web console. But I think it's also not so simple as with Heroku, because with Heroku, you just push your code and it will be automatically deployed. And deployment with the beanstalk takes more time. Yeah, and it's interesting to compare when Heroku is cheaper and when Elastic Beanstalk is cheaper. Because if you work with some pet projects, with personal projects, it's maybe important for you to not pay so much. And yeah, here I forgot about but doesn't matter. Yeah, and we can say that Elastic Beanstalk is cheap on scale, and it will be interesting to compare how they correlate the price of the Heroku and price of the Elastic Beanstalk in the scale. So, and this graph describes on the horizontal axis, we have the scale, so like resources that we needed for application. And for vertical axis, we have the money, the costs. And as you see, Elastic Beanstalk has a straight line graph. So the relation between scale and costs are like a straight line. But for Heroku, this graph will be more like parabola. And so, for example, Heroku at the beginning will be cheaper because it provides free plan, and then you should pay for the dynos not so much. But then at some point, Heroku becomes a more like expensive than Elastic Beanstalk, and it's very interesting to understand and what in what time. So what scale should be. So Heroku and Elastic Beanstalk will cost the same money. And I found approximately the configuration of the system that will have equal price in both platforms. And it's something like we need 2 computers with 1 gigabyte of memory, and we need the database with 64 gigabyte of storage. And at this point, both the Heroku and Elastic Beanstalk will cost approximately $220 per month. And in Heroku, you pay for 2 professional standard 1x dynos, and you pay $25 per month for dyno. And you also need to use premium 0 Heroku Postgres. And this database has 4 gigabytes of memory and 64 gigabytes of storage. And it will cost $200 per month. So in total, it will be $220. But in AWS, you pay for developer support plan, for VPC Net Gateway, for Aurora database instances. If you use Aurora, like with the Postgres engine, they also have 4 gigabyte memory, and they cost approximately $120 per month. And also you need to pay for the Aurora database storage and for load balancer and for the 2 EC2 micro instances with 1 gigabyte memory and also EC2 storage and so on. So, but in total, the price will be the same. It's like near $220 per month. So now we can make a conclusion and say when to use Heroku. I think Heroku will be good for hobby projects. If you don't sure that your application will be active all the time and you don't want to pay for it, you can use the free plan, and it's great, I think. Also, Heroku is good for some proof of concept when you need to try some idea on the internet. For example, test some application with real load and then remove all the resources. With Heroku, you also can easily deploy it and then remove. And Heroku may be good for the startups when you don't want to spend time on infrastructure and you want to just push your product to the market as soon as possible. So it can handle increased load in the future easily with a Heroku. You just need to scale horizontally or vertically. And also Heroku may be useful for small companies when you don't have a dedicated team of cloud engineers or DevOps. You're just doing something like not related to the software development, or you are limited in the human resources. And also Heroku can be useful for middle companies even. If your business don't need a complicated cloud infrastructure and you just want to run your site like smoothly without any issues. And these companies use the Heroku. So you can see here is Financial Times and Toyota. So not only small companies use the Heroku. Okay, so what are the conclusions? Heroku is simple for developers and cheap for on a low scale. And Heroku contains and run your code with dynos, and it's a lightweight Linux container that can run your code, and also dyno can be easily scaled horizontally and vertically. And dyno can be extended with a bunch of different add-ons that allows developers to not think about how to support some additional service, but just use it. And yeah, Heroku provides amazing free plan, and also a lot of add-ons support the free plans. But you need to remember that with a free plan, your website will be paused after 30 minutes of inactivity. So yeah, you need to remember about this. And Heroku doesn't support the .NET out of the box, but you can actually add support for any of the languages that you like and any runtime with the Docker. And Heroku much easier to start with than AWS or, for example, Microsoft Azure. But Heroku is expensive on scale. So I think Heroku is great for a hobby and applications that may grow in the future, but now they don't need the complex infrastructure. Yeah, and that's all. So you can find additional information of the devcenter.heroku.com. And it's a great site with a bunch of examples and bunch of interesting documentation. And you, of course, can send me the message via email if you have some questions. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If we have time, yeah, I can answer some questions if you have.
Yeah, one question regarding the hobby project or the startup project. So what you mean is I have to plan for my cloud migration later on when my application grow in scale.
Yes, I think when you reach the point when you need to think about the money, about how to pay less, you need to migrate your code to some cloud provider, for example, to the AWS. Yeah, but it's one of the drawback. In some moment of time, you maybe need to migrate to the like big cloud.
Okay, and for the security, I didn't understand what security features are available in Heroku. For example, in AWS, you have a specific component for DDoS prevention, for example. So in Heroku, are you not thinking about security that much until you reach the size of the cloud migration. So you don't need to worry about security at low scale.
No, I think you always should care about security, and Heroku provides some secure options. For example, database can be secured by the username and password, but in the same time, the database is available to in the internet. So you don't have such features as virtual private cloud like in AWS. So Heroku in this case have much less capabilities for the security.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you think if you need the secure cloud, you maybe need to choose something else, not the Heroku.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you so much for a good presentation.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you for attention. I hope that it was interesting and you can use this information with your hobby projects in the future. And then you can maybe share some applications that you built with the Heroku. So it will be interesting, at least for me, to see this application. But yeah, thank you.
Will you share this presentation after today?
Yeah, of course. I can send you a link because I don't know how to share it in a proper way. Maybe just send it to you.
Yes, send it to me and I will distribute it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I can do this today.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Alexander, and thank you to all else that listened today.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.